Good afternoon. I will start my speech with a very simple question. Do you know what people are most afraid of? Yes, exactly. From public speeches. So, do you know what could be in the second place? Yes, the fear of death. What could be in the third place? To die during the public speech. So, anyway, there are very many different researches done on phobias and fears that it is very difficult to do classification exactly which fear or phobia we have in the first place. But today, I would like to tackle the question about fear within the change and change management. So, for me, that's a blessing. I'm a professor and a dean in university, and there's a possibility for me to bring together theory and practice. And one of study subjects that I teach is strategy and change. Actually, very, very simple study subject because it is about everything that happens in our daily life. And there are just few things, fundamental things, that we should know about that. And the first is, what comes first, strategy or change? That's a very tricky question. It's like to answer on the question, what was first, chicken or egg? So then, we should understand what a change is, in what level it happens, who is involved, how long it is going to take, and then finally, just to manage it. And on the top of that, there should be some kind of theoretical, statistical, evidence-based blah, blah, blah. And besides that, there is also 7 to 13 organizational change models, which are really recognized in the world. Basically, learn about these models, find the best one for your particular situation or organization, do everything according to the textbook, and that's it. You will survive. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. But more I dig into this topic, both as a professor and as a dean who is always in charge with changes in the university, more I understand that it is not so easy. So, every yes, what I say, every decision, what I make, cause changes. Do you have the same? Exactly. So, but, you know, there are those gurus who work in the strategic management, change management, they have such statistics that 80% of people within organizations are afraid of changes. They resist to changes. And the question is, why so? Usually, you know, Maris also did the same today in his presentation. I asked people why. To everyone whom I met, I started to ask, how do you think? Why people resist to changes in organization? And usually I gave people yellow or pink 5 post-it pages and asked, put down 4 to 5 main reasons. Everyone whom I met, my students, business people, friends, everyone. And usually after such exercises, my wall looked like this. But in this case, there was one word was dominating, and that was fear. And now we should understand what the fear is. So according to the definition, fear is our emotional reaction on something what seems dangerous to us. So, emotional reaction. Then the question is, what is emotions? Let's talk about that. So, within modern psychology, this is stated that there are no one constant emotion that we have. Emotions are flowing and changing and so on and so on. So, but for us, as regular human beings, it is difficult to understand that. That's why I would recommend to all of us, take a look on 10 basic old-school defined emotions. So, according to old classical approach, there are 10 emotions, basic primary emotions, and, you know, 2 of them are positive, One could be positive and negative, and 7 emotions, and I would like to underline that, 7 emotions are negative. Do you know which positive emotions we have? That surprise is not the right here. Happiness, that's not exactly. You have it now. Okay, so first, this is interest. And the second is joy. You can mix it up, the joy and interest and joy, but just 2 of them. Do you know which one emotion can be positive and negative? Surprise, yes, you can be positively surprised and you can be negatively surprised. And now the whole bunch of negative emotions. Yes, exactly. Fear, anger, shame, contempt, disgust, guilt, distress. Wow, what a negative world we live in. And you know what teachers, parents, professors, managers should do? We live in negative emotions. So that's absolutely visible why people resist to change. They are afraid, or they have another negative emotion. So immediately, all my study subject is blown away by wind, because, you know, changes is always about people. And if it is about people, maybe we should call it not change management, but fear management. And you know, this looks like a very, very tricky question for me, because if people feel fear, then this is so difficult to do something. It is like to teach elephant to walk on the rope. But from the other hand, there is, you know, such expression, there is a lie, a damn lie, and then statistics. Why we should agree that 80% of people resist to changes? We have different organizations, you know. There are organizations which are in reality built on everlasting changes. Like, for example, IT industry, they apply agile methodology. This is absolutely different philosophy. So, and in reality, do people resist to changes there? So now we have to come back to that theoretical, statistical, and evidence-based blah, 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 what I mentioned before. And we should recognize that in the world, we have very, very many different organizations. Those organizations are classical, neoclassical, bureaucratic, modern, and so on and so on. Basically, it was mentioned also today that paradigms are changing. Managerial paradigms are changing. Environment is changing. And today, we have in one organization many different generations together. Can you imagine that in one organization today, there could be 5 to 6 different generations? And each generation reacts on changes differently. We have to acknowledge that. And we have absolutely different concept of organizations. So, for example, there are risk-taking organizations like startups. This is absolutely different philosophy. And, you know, that's why let's talk about managers, what they should do to implement changes and let change happen. And first, they have to understand where fear comes from. According to the definition, it was emotional reaction. So, what is emotions? Shortly, emotions are manifestation of our feelings. So, feelings are something that happens in our brain. So, by biochemical processes. Each part of brain is responsible for different perceptions and reactions. And there is one very small part of our brains, which is like almond size, very small, and we call it amygdala. So, to be short, the amygdala plays a prominent role in mediating many aspects of emotional learning and behavior. So, sometimes we are calling amygdala lizard brain. The amygdala is responsible for fear. And this part of brain, of course, protects us from bad and from good. Amygdala, actually, is the part of our brain which starts to negotiate with us when we are trying to do something. For example, every morning at 6 o'clock when I'm waking up for my morning exercise, my amygdala asks me, maybe you shouldn't. And you know, this is always, that's 100% always. And what we should do something before our amygdala starts negotiate with us. So decision should be made already. Okay, but I should say that such a small part, but such a saboteur. Yeah. And that means that to feel fear is normal. Yes, and always there's a question, can we control our brain, feelings, emotions? I'm not a doctor of medicine nor psychologist. You may ask them. And definitely you will get different answers and different explanations. What we must recognize that to feel fear is something normal. You know, kids are afraid to stay alone. They are feeling penetrated from the dark. School children are afraid of humiliation. You have some kind of fears. I also have a fear. You know what? I'm afraid of public speech. But I do that. We suffer more sometimes from imagination than from reality, but life still goes on. What is opposite to the fear, to a fear? Fearlessness. Have you ever met a person who is fearless? You say not brave or valiant, but bold and fearless. You know, I had been pretty many times with such persons in teams, and you know, sometimes, yeah, that person was very brave to meet danger, but at the end of the day, it became a threat to all the team. Because you know, such persons they look like hyperactive, like that dog. And you know, sooner or later, they cannot be taken seriously. So that's why we should recognize that it is better to recognize that you have such feeling as a fear and work with that. So now the question, what managers, leaders, team leaders, what they should do in order to succeed in change management? And first, what I should say, that they should work in positive emotions. Yes, they should keep interest and joy, and that's possible. The second thing, and it was already mentioned today, we have to fail. And we have to fail and learn. Fail yourself if it is necessary. You should remember that failure is absolutely normal. If we fail, we learn. If we will not fail, we will not cause any changes, we will not learn. So that's why we should fail, we should learn from it, and implement changes. So one more thing what is very important to succeed in change management is to use different tools to make change and achievements visible. In other words, show your success, make your success visible. You know, people like to see the progress, and people would like to be happy to see that success is here, and the visualization of the success will help others, those who are still not involved in the process, in the change, those who still feel afraid or afraid to participate in the change, they will start to do that. And now for individuals. How do you think what you should do? First of all, you should recognize your fear. You should analyze it. Why? What are you afraid of? Basically, you shouldn't be afraid of change. Changes will happen with or without you. It's better to be a part of change then, if you know that it's going to happen without you. So second, you should adjust your attitude. Basically, we are most often afraid of obstacles, not on the situation itself. So when we are stressed of obstacles, and when you adjust your attitude, the stress will be gone. And then I would recommend to you, never be afraid of change, because as we today noticed, that's normal. We have amygdala. And finally, I should say that being afraid is natural. And the key to success in this is to start before before you are ready. I'm sorry, and in spite of my fear of public speech, I did it. Thank you very much.